What's going on, everybody? Welcome into The Highlight, a super serious business show for super serious business people. I'm getting really good at that intro there. So today I'm joined by my business partner at High V Marketing and my co-host, Austin Lynch. Austin, what's up, my man? How you doing?
Feeling serious, as always. Feeling really serious.
I'm seriously aggravated about something today. I need to talk about airplane etiquette. Just coming off of like 3 straight weeks of traveling 2 or 3 days a week, and been on a couple airplanes in this time. And I'm trying to think how to say this to not come off like a total ass, but I think there's no way around it. I'm gonna lay this out one time. You know, we're all broke and we're all flying Southwest. We all know what the deal is, right? We know the cattle call. We know you get in line where you're supposed to go. That's not the issue. I think society has pretty much figured it out. The problem we have is that nobody knows whose armrest is whose on a plane, okay? And in order for everybody to get adequate armrest, this is how it goes. And I'm going to say this one time, and I don't want to get anybody adding me and telling me that's not it. You're wrong. If you don't agree with this line of sitting on a Southwest flight, you're wrong. And don't let me catch you on a flight with me, or they're going to call the air marshal. We're going to have a problem. Okay? And it goes like this. Window seat on the left side of the plane. So if the window's on your left, you get the armrest to your right. And the middle seat gets the armrest to their right. And then the outside aisle seat gets the armrest to their right. And then all you math wizards out there, you just flip it for the other side of the plane. So if the window's on your right, you get the left armrest, and so on and so on. How come I had a window seat and the guy in the middle took it as a slight to his dignity for a 4-hour flight to San Diego? He's not even that big a guy. But what he wanted to do was to he's bodybuilding. You can see me on the YouTube channel attempt to recreate, as I beat the microphone up, attempt to recreate what he looks like. He's going full Dorito mode, getting super wide, and just immediately claiming domination of both armrests. And I don't even know what to do about it. I'm giving the subtle jabs. I'm giving the subtle I'm elbow jockeying with him to try to gain ground here. Thought I was going to have to launch my own D-Day invasion of this armrest. And we're an hour into the flight, and all of a sudden I'm I got to talk to this guy about this thing. And I'm I take an earbud out. And then I look at him and I say, "Hey, how you doing?" Because I like to, let's common ground here. He's like, "Fine," or whatever the hell he caveman grunted back at me. And I'm like, "Hey, would you mind if I get this armrest?" He's like, "What armrest?" What do you mean, what armrest? It's the one I'm sitting next to. What do you mean,
the
what
one
armrest?
Under your arm.
Yeah, the 2 armrests accompanying the seat you're in. One of them's mine. And, we have this little back and forth, and it ends with him going well, what if I put my arm in the front and you put your arm behind me? And I was like, that works. I felt like I had gotten as much as I could get out of the situation. And so my question to you is, I don't care if you agree with my alignment of seating there. I'm right. It's just the way it's done. The question is should I have pushed further on principle and gotten the whole armrest, or just let it be?
So I'll be honest. I've been sitting here this whole time thinking, who actually does get what armrest? Because I've never quite thought through it. I'm a small guy. I don't need a lot of space. And so the hard part for me is I would personally do absolutely nothing about it because I just don't need that much space. However, I understand the need. I certainly understand the need. And as I thought about it, I thought, you know what? My first thought was middle guy gets both armrests, because at least the window can kind of lean this way and the aisle can kind of lean this way, and everyone can kind of avoid each other, which is what I would ideally want to do on a plane. I don't really want to be close to anybody. I kind of want to have clear divisions. But as I thought through it more, and I thought through what you were saying about the inside armrest, I think the button on the armrest should kind of say who gets which one, because the button on the armrest does prove the point. And if it's your controlling arm. So I think you're right. I think it is the inside armrest. But it's kind of shocking the way I've been thinking about this, because in my mind previously, the middle seat is objectively the worst. I think everyone agrees the middle seat is the worst.
No one's arguing that. Yeah.
Right. And so in my head, I've always been like, okay, well, middle seat person can get both armrests because they have to deal with the middle seat. But now I don't know, because I think the button tells all.
The button is I didn't even think about the button, but that is a
The
further
button
nail.
seals it.
That's the ceiling. That's the straw that breaks the arguments back. There is no more discussion. This is, I don't know. I feel like a little bit of a wuss that I didn't go all the way.
You should have called out the button. You should have said, you see how the button's on my side?
Next time. I'm going immediately to the button next time.
At least
I'm
you're
like,
prepared
hey,
now.
check the button, She-Hulk. Like, leave me, get off my armrest.
Oh my God.
All right. Well,
about Chandler.
I'm glad we got that off my chest because it was really aggravating me the whole way home from the airport. All right. So you can see behind me, and if you could see Austin's office, Austin and I love reading books. We're big book people. It's something we've become friends over early on in our friendship. We bonded over, like, what book are you reading this month? What book are you reading? Yada, yada. And
might have been a little bit of a friendly competition there in terms of how many books we were reading at one point.
I think there were some definite, like, subtle flexes about how many books one person could read. At one point, I had like 30 books on my desk just so everybody at the Cube Farm would know what was up. And now I just have them behind me. And this is only one of my racks. I have a whole nother one over here to the left. But I brought this topic up to Austin because I think there's tons of books. I think something like 30,000 books are written a year, maybe more. And with all that information and all that stuff coming out, and who knows about fake Amazon reviews and everything else, like, what is actually a good business book to read if you're somebody that wants to become a entrepreneur for the first time? And so Austin and I have been entrepreneurs for a while now, and we've read a ton of books. And so we put a list. He's got his top 5, and I don't know what they are. I'll be interested to see if we have the same books or not. And I've got my top 5.
We might.
And these books, if you read these 10 books, in theory, you should be able to build a company just like we did. And so I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to you for book number 1.
All right. Book number 1 is there for a long time. I was considering this maybe my favorite book ever.
Are these in any particular order, or is it just whatever you're grabbing there?
I sort of ordered them, but not really. My first 3 sort of play along together, which probably gives you a giant hint into what I'm about to talk about. But the first 3 kind of go together, and I read them near each other. So, but this first book is, truthfully, I would say it's like a 9.5 out of 10 if I was having to grade it. One of my all-time favorites, Ride of a Lifetime by Robert Iger. So as you'll quickly discover, I'm a big memoir, biography, autobiography kind of nerd because I love to learn from people that I admire and I think have done amazing things. And so a lot of what you'll see is inspiration that I get from other people. And if you don't know who Bob Iger is, he was the CEO of Disney for over 15 years, and he oversaw much of what people now see as Disney. So he led the acquisitions of Marvel, Lucasfilms. Obviously, we're both big Star Wars nerds. And
by the way, we have Star Wars. Anything drops Star Wars related movies, shows, it's a company holiday. That's a fun fact for everybody.
Yeah, that's the
Don't
truth.
email us on May the 5th or May the 4th. You'll be very upset.
Yeah. Don't email on May the 4th. That's right. So anyway, he oversaw the acquisition of both of those powerhouses in terms of entertainment, but he also, 21st Century Fox, he, helped them acquire that. That was one of the biggest acquisitions ever. And then obviously a little known company called Pixar was also acquired by Disney under him. You see him deal with crazy huge problems throughout the whole span of the book. He had to cut a ribbon at the largest Disney park ever the same day that a little girl was eaten by an alligator at a different park, same day. And he had to get off the phone with the family and go deliver a speech in front of thousands of people, same exact day. Just a lot of crazy stories in here that just show you how to lead when things are going crazy. And it's just a phenomenal book. I mean, he also, one of the biggest things, and this is the last thing I'll say, he mended the relationship between Steve Jobs and Disney. And the reason that was such a big deal was because Steve Jobs was, kind of the key holder for Pixar and a number of other things. But there really wasn't a great relationship there previously. And once Bob Iger kind of took the reins, he was able to mend that relationship, which is a huge deal for Disney. So that's number one,
and
Ride of the
all
Lifetime.
of us. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I haven't read that one yet. I did take Bob Iger's masterclass, which I think is just a shortened version of
the book. Yep.
And I loved his masterclass. It
phenomenal.
was I think what I love about autobiographies is that they're so inspirational in the stories. You can sort of extrapolate from them, and they're real. And what can you apply to your own life? So that's good. My first book is a classic, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. And this book is, I don't know how to explain it. It is, if you want to own a business and you've never done it before, read this book first, because the framework that he walks you through, from the technician, the manager, and the entrepreneur, that framework totally changed my mind. And it really helped me, especially with my first business, go, okay, when I'm working in the business, I'm the technician. I am the barbecue pit master. I am the cashier. I am the thing. When I am working on the books or I'm doing strategy, I am the entrepreneur. And then when I'm trying to make the operation more efficient, I'm the manager. And those are three very different hats. And I think that he starts the book off talking about how most people that end up owning small businesses, they're very good technicians. They're very good plumbers. They're very good carpenters. They're very good marketers, like yourself and I. And then all of a sudden you have what he calls, I believe, a entrepreneurial seizure, where you sort of have this freak out moment and you're like, I'm going to go out and do it on my own and I'm going to make all this money and yada, yada, yada. And you don't even know what you've just signed yourself up for, which is a totally new career. You're no longer a marketer. You're no longer a technician. You are now a business owner, which is a different career than just being a do the thing person. And so different skill sets have to be learned. This book is fantastic at doing that. You have to read it before you start a business. What's your second book, Austin?
Very nice.
Mine are not in order, by the way. These are just...
E-Myth is one of those books that, so I have not read it cover to cover, but I have seen it referenced about 10,000 times. You've probably referenced to me, about 10,000 times.
Minimum.
So,
yeah,
I know it's an absolute banger. So the second book definitely plays into my first. I told you the first three did. And this one is Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull. So obviously you see my good friend Buzz here. This is Ed Catmull's the guy that started Pixar. And ironically, we were talking about Star Wars. He started at Lucasfilm. He's just
Lucas
a phenomenal
to Pixar. That's a little known fact.
It's just a really, really interesting story, because he kind of started doing something that no one had ever done or even dreamed of. Animation was, kind of at a plateau for a long time, and he came in and really wanted to change the way digital animation was done and make it look more like the way we would actually see things and experience things. So my son watches Finding Nemo constantly, and the way that the light shines through the water, like that would have never been shown previously. And so he comes in and really wants to fine tune everything. And so it's a really phenomenal story. But honestly, I really included this book because it fits so well into the first and third books I'll talk about. Just because the Pixar and Disney connection is so strong. Reading these two books together, along with the third I'm going to talk about here in a little bit, it's just really interesting to see, because like you said earlier, the cool thing about these stories is that that these events were true, they really happened, And the interesting thing about these first 3 books is that they interweave so much that you get to see the same story from different perspectives. And it's absolutely fascinating because if you don't, you're only going to learn a part of the lesson. So really fascinating book. I mean, phenomenally written. I actually read this on my way to Disney World, which was really fun. So.
It's good timing. I was just in Cincinnati a couple weeks ago, and the museum there is in an old train station, and in the basement right now they have a special exhibit with Pixar and how the movies are made, and it's really fascinating. They let you see how things are animated in all the different phases, and the amount of technology required to make those films is mind-blowing. It's insane, the amount of art. The other thing in that book that I really loved, I did read that book, was the what is it, the Brain Trust, where they come in and they just absolutely wear on an artist movie, and they just keep hammering on it until they get the story right. And I remember reading that and just thinking, ego is the worst thing in the world for anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur or a leader. You have to present your idea, trust your team enough that they're going to give you the right feedback, and they're not going to like kill you over it. But even if they attack the idea, you are not your idea. And you have to check your ego at the door and basically say, let's come out of here with the best idea possible, and then call it a day.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That is a phenomenal part of that book.
Then that book is full of nuggets. I mean, that is like
the leadership team.
Yeah,
at Pixar was phenomenal, and then when Disney acquired it, because they had built such a delicate ecosystem inside of Pixar that worked so well. I think Bob Iger did a phenomenal job of managing the acquisition while also keeping Pixar kind of who they were and not kind of Disneyfying them too much, because they did need to kind of still be Pixar. So let's hear your next one.
Next book for me is Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0 by Jim Collins and Bill Lazier. I'm not sure how to say his last name. This book, I love everything Jim Collins has written. Good to Great, How the Mighty Fall, and others. I mean, that guy takes all the big data of all these Fortune 500 and above companies and synthesizes it down into actual advice. And it's funny to me how you look at stories like that, that integrate together, and then you look at that data that Jim brings to the table, and you see that in a book like Ed Catmull's, there's a lot of like theory and like this story, this tactic worked for me in my business. And what gets lost a lot of times is, does that actually apply to everyone's business, or did that just work for you? And I think when you take books like Jim Collins here with Beyond Entrepreneurship, you start to see that the data actually supports the theory and the anecdotal evidence from a person's life, like an Ed Catmull or a Bob Iger. And this book, building on the E-Myth Revisited, I would read this book second, because it's going to really teach you how to be a visionary entrepreneur. You know, your job as an entrepreneur is to set the vision for the company, set the tone to see where we're all going to go. And that's a skill set. Like I said, it's a new job that you have to learn how to do. And, you know, that's a big deal. So I will kick it over to you for the third book.
Yeah. So this is the last of the 3 for me that connect. But this next one is an absolute Goliath, behemoth monster of a book. I believe you've read this one, but none other than Steve Jobs himself for the 3rd book. I mean, just look at this. It is ridiculous. I think it's 800 pages or so, and it is an absolute monster of a read. However, it is filled with amazing stories and even better lessons. And obviously, I also kind of just fanboyed over these 3 books for a long time because, again, they just played so well together, and they also are just such a huge influence in our lives. I mean, especially Steve, but this one's really fascinating to me. I mean, in our last episode, we talked about work-life balance. I think Steve is probably famous for being maybe one of the worst ever at this. I mean, people often think of him as a very impersonable person, and it's very fascinating because this is a very raw story. It's written by Walter Isaacson. It is a biography, not an autobiography. Steve never even read the book. Walter was truly one of the only people that Steve let into his life in this way to capture such true raw stories. And, while Steve didn't read it, everything is basically confirmed through other people that worked closely with him and that are talked about in the book. But one of my favorite things is at the end of his life, and again, Bob Iger talks about this in his book, but at the end of Steve's life, he kind of had a little bit of a transformation and became a little bit more personable. People don't really think about it that way, but he dealt with really severe issues for a long time, and both like mentally, physically, everything like that. And as things were starting to kind of fall apart for him in his health, things were starting to kind of piece themselves back together in a strange way in terms of kind of his personal life. So I think for me, it was just a really heavy read, and another good example of kind of ways in which we can really focus on the business, but also like, maybe some things to avoid, and like kind of knowing your boundaries. So if you've got really like a month and a half, dedicate your time to this, or maybe the audiobook. But I mean,
I was about to say, I tend to listen to the biographies in the audiobook version, and I think that one is coming in at a tight 24 hours on the nonstop audio. And it's worth every minute. There's no wasted space in that book. I think for me, a new entrepreneur should look at that book as a cautionary tale. You talk about somebody that, like we talked about in our last episode, and if you haven't listened to it, go back and check it out. But that book is a cautionary tale of here's what happens when you forsake everything else in pursuit of a idea. And he's one guy that, with a team of amazing people, built a truly once in a lifetime company. Here's the thing. You're probably not going to build a once in a lifetime company. And here's the other thing about that. That's okay. It's okay that you don't build a once in a lifetime company. It's okay that you build a solid couple $1 million revenue business that has 20, 30 employees, and you just crush it in their lives and your community. All that stuff is never going to have a book written about it, more than likely, but it's what the world needs. So my challenge to you as an aspiring entrepreneur is, don't feel bad that you haven't built something as big as a Steve Jobs or Bob Iger or Ed Catmull. It's okay that you're not the next Pixar. What the world needs is more like great local barbecue restaurants.
You're right.
I'm biased. All right. My next book is, again, building. This one is a little bit of an out of the left field. All right. This is called The Creative Curve by Alan Gannett. And I don't know if you and I have ever talked about this book.
I don't think I have heard of this one.
I've not brought this book up a lot. This book is a little bit of my secret weapon. I keep it safe, and I keep it hidden, and I don't give it out to people. And the reason is that if you understand what's in this book, you can literally do anything you want as a business owner. And the reason you've probably never heard of this book is that you're a business owner and an entrepreneur, personal development type, and you're not an artist. And he wrote this book for artists. I think the tagline of this book is how to develop the right idea at the right time. And I've always looked at business as an art form. And he really gets into this book explaining how do artists break through? Like, what is the process they follow to break through? Like, why did the Beatles make it? Why did a Picasso make it? And I'll give you the framework that he gives. It's, at first, you have to consume. Second, you have to imitate. Third, you have to join a creative community. And 4, you have to iterate. And what I love about this is that if you're going to go start a lawn care company and you know nothing about lawn care, you have to consume everything in the world about lawn care. So you should go work part-time at a lawn care company for 6 months. Yeah. You should watch every YouTube video available. You should read every book possible. You should consume nothing but lawn care podcast. And then on top of that, because you have to learn the skill of lawn care, you have to also consume podcasts like The Highlight, other podcasts, other YouTube channels, anything that's going to help you become a better leader, entrepreneur, business owner. You have to go consume first, because what you're doing when you're consuming is sort of forming your gut opinion. You're getting the wisdom of others ingrained into you. And wisdom is a expensive thing to earn on your own. And it's much better to go out and get it from other people and let them bring you what they've already learned. Like with your first 3 books there's tons of great wisdom in those that if you are smart and you go study them, you can really set yourself up for success as a business owner. I'm not going to give away the rest of the book, but yeah, imitate is another big one there.
I'm gonna have
because
to
once
pick
you've
that one up.
consumed, yeah, it's great. Once you've consumed, you have to imitate. Like, don't try to go make something new and iterate before you know what the hell you're doing. Like, why don't you just build a regular lawn care company and then iterate on it? Because iteration, when people think about creating something new, they think that it's 100% new, and it's not. Usually what something new is, it's 80% the same as what's come before, with maybe 10, 15% added in from another field that's not being done yet. And then 5% is sort of like made up out of the mystic nothing. And it's sort of like, that's that creative thing that comes out of nowhere. And, when we had the barbecue restaurant, we started out looking like every other barbecue restaurant. And then over time, we added our own things to it. It took us 3 or 4 years to sort of add our own unique spin. But for the first 4 years, Lyles Barbecue looked like every other barbecue place. But the year we crushed it and broke through the $1 million revenue barrier was the year we finally iterated and created our own voice. But it took 3 years of imitation to get to that level. So I love that
3
book.
years
and
of just good barbecue.
Just lots of barbecue. That's it. What's your next one?
Well, I'm pulling a book from deeper in the stack because you said something that made me think that I just had to jump in with this. You mentioned your last book was kind of made for the creative, but has really helped you in business, and it made me think of this book, which you might have read. If you haven't read it, you've certainly heard it talked about. But The War of Art. This is, for me, this is more of a mindset book. And honestly, the next two, this book and the next book for me are kind of mindset books. But this is, it's very short read, very easy read, really short chapters, page and a half long chapters. Honestly, it's like spaced out heavily. But what's so great about this book is it tackles a term that they define as resistance, which resistance is basically defined as anything that gets in the way between you and what you need to do. And so, it references the creative a lot, or the writer, for example. It talks about the writer because obviously that's what the author of the book, Stephen Pressfield, that's what he is. And for him, the resistance is anything that keeps him from writing or keeps him from working on the stuff that he's written. And it's kind of, in a weird way, it's sort of a very artistic look at kind of just the no BS mentality. That's kind of like, you have to just put resistance in its place and move forward towards your goal. And it's just a very fantastic book. It's called The War of Art: Break Through the Blocks and Win Your Inner Creative Battles. And so, it's kind of like, even for this podcast, it's sort of like we could come up with reasons not to do it. We're not ready, blah, blah, blah. Sort of like what you were just talking about in a way. It even says, the Esquire quote here is, "A vital gem, a kick in the ass." It's a very no BS look from the creative perspective. I think it's been a good one for me.
I think it's funny. The resistance is such a great analogy,
just term
for the voice in your head. It's so good because it gives you a physical thing to fight.
It's mentally. The negative voice in your head, just the bad, keeping you from what you need to do.
While you're running your business, guess what's going to happen? Probably once every week, maybe once every other week if you're lucky. Something's going to creep into the back of your head and go, "Hey, I don't think you're good enough to do this. I think you should quit. And I think that you're going to look real dumb when you mess this all up. And so you might as well just quit now before anybody finds out what you're doing." And that happens every time you do something new. When we launched this podcast, I felt that way. Every time we post a new social clip, I mean, it's always there, and you just have to learn how to fight through it. I love that book. That's great. It's really a good book. Yeah. All right, these next two books for me. So I'm sort of building here. These first three books, they give you the how of leading and running a small business, a first time entrepreneurial venture. Okay, these next two books are all about the sort of philosophies behind sales and marketing for me. If you can understand the premises of these two books and really get them, I think you'll be one of the top 10% sales and marketing people on the planet. And the first of the two books is Robert Cialdini's Influence. This book has, I think it is, there are 6 different psychological points he puts in here about persuasion. And here's a spoiler alert, marketing and sales is pretty much all about persuading people. And we're good people and we believe in what we sell and we're not snake oil salesmen. And so you're persuading them to get things that are good. But at the end of the day, you're competing with every other advertiser on the planet. And there's a lot of them.
Yep.
My favorite, have you read this book? I don't know if we've ever talked about this one.
I have not. You're pulling out a lot of deep stacks.
I keep some books on the down low.
Yeah, no. Bringing out the exclusives.
My favorite principle from this book is reciprocity. If you get nothing else out of that book, if you can understand the principle of reciprocity, which is give before you take, you will win in business. Just give more than you take. Keep a positive bank account balance emotionally with your customers and vendors and employees. And if you just keep doing that again and again and again and again for a long enough, consistent enough amount of time, your business will succeed. What's your next one?
That's awesome. Definitely a good
You got to
principle.
get that one.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right. Well, this is my last one in the stack. Again, I mentioned how my last 2 books were kind of mindset books. Chandler, you know that this one is my go-to. And it might be kind of one of your go-tos as well. But if you haven't read it, you need to. Can't Hurt Me, David Goggins.
Love that.
This book is just amazing. It kind of just shows you that you're capable of doing a lot more than you think you are. And, you know, if you find that hard to believe, then you definitely need this book. It's one of those things where you just constantly read stories throughout the book of things that any normal person would just say, no, that's not possible. You know, I'll probably butcher the numbers a little bit, but, you know, on the cover, you can kind of see he's got a shadow of himself kind of behind him there. And that's his, you know, 300 plus pound self. And the guy on the inside there, that's him after he lost the weight. I think he had like, I don't know, a couple months to lose over 100 pounds so that he could apply for Navy SEAL school. And he did it. And, you know, that's just one of very, very, very many crazy stories in here. He turned out to be an ultra marathoner, you know, after a long career in the military, and did lots of 100-mile plus races. He's probably done dozens of them by now. And he just kind of inspires people to do things that you wouldn't expect, you know, yourself to be able to do. So phenomenal book. If you haven't read it, you really, really need to. It's very raw, but it is, it's just a great story.
Definite not safe for work warning on that book. It's a
AirPods for that one.
Yeah, for sure. It is. I listened to the audiobook of that one too, and it's
the audiobook's amazing. You basically get an added
context.
pod. Yeah, I mean, they basically do like a podcast where David fills you in on even more of what was happening. So
it's good that you brought that one
book.
in after the War of Art, because that resistance thing, I mean, it really will stop you from doing so much on your entrepreneurial journey, because again, you're going to, like, being an entrepreneur is nothing but every single day you're going to face a new problem that you don't have the answer for. And the problem is, as an entrepreneur, you have nobody to go to get the answer. There's no boss, there's no leader, there's no company owner. You are it. And so,
but there's also no excuse.
There's also no excuse. Exactly. And so you're going to have to figure it out. And that book is he's got some really, it's a crazy story, but I do remember there's like actual like cookie jar. There's some tactical things in there that you can, you know, the 40% rule, like things like that. Like you can actually apply them tactically to your life, even though you've not gone through the same things he has.
It's definitely on the far end of the extremes in terms of, applying examples to your own life. I mean, it's going to be hard to do a little bit, but it'll at least point out that, people are capable of doing more than we think on the surface.
100%. You are capable of way more than you think. You're so right. All right. My last book here. This is the best book on communication I have ever read, and I've read a lot, and it is the best. And I listened to his masterclass as well, and it's a great supplement to the book as well. But the book is top 5 books for me all time, in general, not just business owners or wanting to be an entrepreneur. And it is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. This book is single-handedly the best book I've ever read on communication. I cannot say enough positive things about this book. If you here's the thing, as an entrepreneur, you're going to be a salesperson. You are now in the business of sales. Even if you're a great technician and you're good at doing the thing, like let's say you're a plumber and you want to be your own plumbing business now. That's fine. That's great. I'm very happy for you. We'd love to market your company. Go to highbeammarketing.com. Free marketing audit. But what I will tell you is that you're going to have to talk to that person on the phone before you get scheduled to go. This Never Split the Difference book will give you so many tactics. The stories are crazy because he's a former FBI negotiator. The stories are insane. But the tactics in it are so good. The pregnant pause, the how, what questions, the mirroring, the I read this book every January. It is.
That's amazing.
This is one of those books that I revisit and study, and I need it infused into my DNA. It is so good at communication. And here's the thing, we all communicate with each other. And so just like 2 warriors going into battle are going to test their skills, you're going to have your communication skills put up against the other person's communication skills. And if your prospect's communication skills are better than yours, you're probably going to lose the sale. Or at least you're going to give them a discount, or something's going to happen. How many times do people ask us for discounts? All the time. But you have to have tools and tactics and tricks to get around it to where you can protect the relationship and still get what you want out of it. I'll be honest, I did not use this book when I was arguing with the person in the middle seat. I lost my emotional discipline, and I was just so incensed at the wrong I was given.
The arm rest.
I split the difference, and I split the arm rest. God, see, this all comes full circle. I'm a failure. I got to try again.
You got to read the book again now.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So we're not rule followers. I think we're doing one bonus. We're going to give them something a little extra.
I had a bonus.
So it's not top 10. We're going to give you 12.
Certainly not. I would be honest in saying that this is not even number 6 in terms of, for me, books that you need to read. I would say this is a fun read, and it was an extremely fun read for me. It was given to me as a gift by my dad for Christmas. And if you know me and you know my dad, you know that we love rock music. And so this book that he gave me is called Me Inc. by Gene Simmons. So if you know anything about Gene Simmons, he's a bass player, main kind of guy in the band Kiss, and he makes a crap load of money. He sells a product with his face on it in damn near every category you can come up with. And he's been very successful at that. And so it's a phenomenal book about marketing yourself and about creating a personal brand that people would want to buy into. And it's just like any other of these books, filled with crazy, ridiculous stories from his career and his past. But for me, this is kind of a fanboy book, and it was a lot of fun to read. So if you're interested in rock music, if you're interested in building a personal brand that you can sell, Me Inc., Gene Simmons. That's all I'll say about that.
One. I do know you love Kiss. If you ever want to butter Austin up and get an actual discount for this company, you can send him a Kiss poster signed by Gene Simmons, and you'll trigger reciprocity inside of him, and he'll have to split the difference with you and give you a discount.
I'm not going to say no.
All right. Well, this is one of those books that is on the same tier as the last book I just gave. And when I read this book, it unlocked so many things I'd been struggling with, and it made it so crystal clear for me. what I was messing up. And that is Atomic Habits by James Clear. At this point, I'm sure you've heard of this book. This book is millions and millions of copies in print. It's amazing. It is a book. I struggled for years with habits, and I understood systems vaguely, and I understood you know what I had trouble with? I had read the E-Myth, and I had read Jim Collins, and I had gotten really clear on like, okay, here's how you handle yourself in the day-to-day, and here's how you handle yourself as an entrepreneur, looking at the vision and casting vision, and like, here's where we want to go.
Yeah.
But the problem is that now there's a gap. There's a gap between what you do on a daily basis and what you want to go do one day. And so what I needed help with was connecting those two dots. Atomic Habits was the book that gave me tactics and stories and frameworks to actually build a personal plan. Like, dots. Daily systems executed consistently will result in our vision. That book, James Clear is my favorite author of all time. Like, his blog,
I knew that was going to show up in your stack. It is so good.
It is a book I recommend on a daily basis. I take personal responsibility for the fact that everybody at Ramsey Solutions has read that book. I don't care what anybody else says. I brought that book there. And it's annoying, but it is what it is.
Hey, that's a good addition. If you're going to give a bonus, that's a good one to give.
Yeah. It's crazy. I love books. I want to end with the story before we get into the rest of because I know we got the Austin bit at the end, and I just see it on your big dumb face. The dumb smile. It's a good one. Do something.
It's a good one today.
You're not going to give me. Last week you gave me the Facebook push tip, and I liked that. That was a good serious one. I can see it on your face. You're not. I just can tell now. So.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So
still got to. Yep.
The thing I will tell you is this. When I think I mentioned this in last week's episode when we talked about work-life balance and how I had gained like 70 pounds and stopped hanging out with friends and doing all this different stuff. One of the things I stopped doing, okay, let me backtrack for a second. In the Air Force, when I was like dreaming of being my own business owner and I was selling barbecue on the weekends for fun and like just trying to like figure it out, I woke up every single morning and read at least 15 minutes a day. And that was a part of my daily routine that I was like learning all these things at 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. And it was blowing my mind hearing these stories from other people and seeing what could be in my life if I just went out and did some of these other things. When I started that restaurant, I stopped reading. As soon as we started selling barbecue out of a tent on the side of the road, I got too busy. I got, like we talked about last week, I got 100% focused in on just building the biggest business I possibly could. And I stopped learning and I stopped consuming and I just iterated on my own experiences, which is fine. And you can take it to a certain level. But when you only iterate on your own experiences, you miss out on the wealth of knowledge that other people can bring to the table. And so my encouragement to you is this, before we get out of here in just a minute, is no matter how busy you get, find time to continually bring new experiences into your mind, whether that's you learning by podcast or by video or like Austin and I like to do with books. Please take the time to do this because I cannot iterate enough how much I blame closing my last business on stopping the learning process. So with that being said, Austin, do you want to do today's ad read and then you can just roll right into your whatever segment is?
Absolutely. Yeah. So as you know, if you've listened to us in the past, Chandler and I, we do sponsor this show ourselves, and that's through High Beam Marketing. And so what we do is if you have your own business that you run, we'll do an audit for you of all of your marketing pieces. Anything that you put out that a consumer might see or touch, we'll come in, we'll tell you kind of what you're doing well, what we think you could improve on, and then anything that we could actually tangibly help you with. There it is, High Beam Marketing. And so if you're interested in doing that, if you want us to come in and take a look at your marketing pieces and do an audit for you, go to highbeammarketing.com, fill out our form, and we'd be happy to reach out to you. And then now for Chandler's favorite part. I know he's so excited.
You're on YouTube. You can see how excited I
get
am.
My own little bit at the end of every episode here because fun is one of our core values. And I have to remind Chandler about that all the time. And today's a fun end to the episode. I don't remember when this was, maybe January, February. My family took a trip to Disney World. and we are big Star Wars fans, and so I just had to show you something cool that I have mounted to my wall in the office. One of the many fun things as I look around the office that I see every day, and that is my ginormous replica lightsaber of Darth Vader. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Here we go. Oh, God. All right, I think I might have just broken my window. I think
we're going to get out of here before you destroy your entire office. I begrudgingly am fine with us having fun because I'm listening to your life experience and I'm trying to impart some of your wisdom into myself, and we'll see how that goes. But anyways, man, I appreciate you joining me as always. I appreciate everybody out there listening as always. That's it, man. What a great episode. I think this is the best one we've done yet. This is episode 5, and
I've loved it.
Just being consistent. I honestly think this is the best one we've done yet. So appreciate you guys listening. We'll see you next week.
Peace.